6th of April 2024 at 12:18 p.m. in Berlin, Germany. Welcome once again to our cosmic journey, casting our chart in the startup universe. Designer Jake with engineer Trey, as always. Hello, Trey.
Hello, Jake.
Yeah. So this was a big week for me because I got to come out as somebody who is doing my own startup and somebody who is practicing the idea of magic and learning about yourself through ways that are not purely the visceral kind of normal channels, right? So like not of Earth, but of more mystical
Aether.
nature. Of more. Sorry, what did you say?
Of Aether.
Of etheric
Ether.
ways.
Yes.
That I probably should not have done it on April Fool's Day, because at least 3 people thought that it was an April Fool's joke, of which one of them.
Rightfully so.
And I texted the person later and I was like, I'm a little concerned about, and confused about your responses. And they're like, I thought it literally was a joke. And I'm like, hey, you know what? That's on me. And I wrote them back. I'm like, that's on me. Absolutely. How are you doing otherwise? You doing okay?
Yeah, I'm doing great. I thought it was interesting with your post on LinkedIn that the people who were, it seems like the people who were the most vocal about either questioning what you were doing or trying to provide advice that maybe you should do something else or whatever, tended to be white, male,
Cisgendered.
heterosexual, cisgendered friends of ours.
Exactly. And that makes,
which doesn't mean that if, like, it's always easy to paint everybody with a brush, right? And I'm definitely not doing that, because it's certainly not true. But it did seem like I think there were a lot of people, as is always the case with something like this, where like there's going to be a number of people who aren't going to get it and are just going to be like, okay, whatever, and I'm just going to move on.
yeah.
Or like, whatever, you do you. But then there are some people who, like, probably out of like definitely a genuine sense of kindness and compassion, and like these are like friends of ours or like people that we know or people that we've worked with or whatever. So it's not coming from a place of hostility or anything like that, but then it comes through as like, well, have you thought about doing something else that's maybe adjacent and isn't so like ridiculous as something like astrology, for example.
The joke was, maybe we should just do Aikido. That was the big joke.
Yeah, that's just like one example. But I think
but it's all good. Like we have friends, we have people who care about us. That means a lot in this world.
Yeah. And also it's an evolution, like I don't think there's ever any like, everybody's perspective on anything is evolving over time. And so what you see with something like a post on LinkedIn or whatever is a snapshot in time. It's like, this is where I'm at right now. Like, I'm starting this business, like I'm officially announcing it. It's in a place that is not easy for somebody who's squarely reductionist materialist to like get into or whatever. And that's one step in like, a long process. And I think once Cosmic is out there and it's, we have a released version and, it's a little bit more like tangible where people can go and like go to a website, see what's going on there, see the kind of stuff that we're up to, which right now is mostly in our heads and not in the world. Then
or in these videos.
Or in these videos. It'll be a little bit more tangible, I think, for people. And then it's an awkward time that we're in.
It's okay. We're in the we bathe in the awkwardness, just
soak it in.
The viewers with us every week, watching us, cringing along to whatever we're doing.
The viewer.
Although I think we got about 50 views in our last video, probably because of, I don't know. Don't quote me
because
on
of the post. Because of the post on LinkedIn, probably.
You can see that video over there, of course.
Whoa.
No, see.
Look at that.
You're in the wrong direction. You're kind of.
Wait, why?
Because we're in agenda view now, so it's straight over that way. Anyways, doesn't matter. The cycle was called Just Scraping By. We have one demo today. I'm not going to show off the scraping code that I wrote in Python. You're welcome. But we are going to show fancy buttons and labels today. Yeah, and it was a good cycle, but it was a little bit more straightforward than the other two cycles that were much more expansive, I would say.
Yeah, this one was more digging into back end stuff and nuts and bolts stuff and like, yeah, web scraping and like working on new componentry and things like that. So yeah.
Yeah. But as always, we start with the check-in question. And this is your check-in question. Mr. Henry, can you share a moment or situation that tested your resilience?
Not my resolve.
Not
My
well, it could be your
resilience.
resolve, resilience, whatever word that you would like.
whatever, whatever reason.
Reason in the words that we have.
Yeah. So I think a good like a good example of something that um, that really required a lot of resilience uh, was the time that I spent at Oracle after the startup that I was working at got acquired. Um, and there's actually a parallel here I was just thinking about too with uh, the last year or so of my time at Amazon as well. I think we're also um, it would also fit well into this category. But I'll go with the Oracle example and try to keep it relatively brief. I worked at this startup where I was the first employee that was with some folks that I had done other startups with in the past. Um, and we worked on that company for about 4 years and then sold it to Oracle. And at that point in time, I was heading up all of the sort of front end of this product. So everything that the user interacted with in the system, including like hardware and software and all of these things were sort of handled by my team. I brought that over to this new team at Oracle. Um, and it was a very tough transition because we went from a startup environment to like one of the largest and stodgiest tech companies on the planet. And so I was trying very hard to keep the culture and the sort of and a safety bubble around our team
Yeah.
so that we could continue to work well and be productive. And that ended up actually becoming problematic and a bottleneck for our new environment. So instead of adapting or trying to bridge the gap between what we were doing and what we needed to be doing, I instead sort of tried to wrap my arms around everybody in the team and say like, I'll protect you from the storms. Don't stick your head out the window. And then that ended up being
And that helps
being
a
very
lot with,
difficult.
sorry, that helps a lot with psychological safety, but can look to others like you are being insular or hiding something. And I think,
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what happened. Like we got, I got constant feedback of like, what's the UX team doing? Like, and I was in all of these status meetings and whatever, and keep doing I think, a fairly good job of communicating about this stuff. But there was still this sense that we were that the front end team was just kind of like its own isolated thing. And that was to some extent very intentional. And then, there was also a number of like, there were a number of other interpersonal issues and things like that.
right.
Intrigue, backstabbing, there was all kinds of crazy stuff. And then, but because there was a financial reason to stick around for a period of time, it was really like all I really wanted to do was just like run screaming from that place, which I will say is not an unusual experience for anybody who's actually good working at a company like Oracle. Um, but but
No shade. Oracle's not sponsoring our podcast, so I think that's fine. Nor software, so I think it's going to
yeah,
be fine.
yeah, exactly.
Just don't
I
don't
mean,
say
I
anything.
would say
Don't ever say anything bad about Shadow Legends or because
yeah, anybody who
they
might
might be a
sponsor us,
sponsor one day. Or
raid
yeah,
shady
exactly.
leggings. Uh, yeah, no. I mean, I think the data proves me or proves what I'm saying as well, because basically, like, none of the really great people who I either worked at Nebula, the company that I worked for, or also some of the other folks that came in from other places, like almost everybody who's really good stuck around for a short period of time and then got the hell out.
Yeah.
Um, and so anyway, whatever. But I think. one of the things that's kind of like underlying this question is this idea of the struggle that you go through is how growth happens. And there was this really great quote that I actually found from ChatGPT that was related to a Minecraft server that I run, where one of the players on the Minecraft server wanted me to change a server setting to make it easier for them to do something. And basically, my point back to them was like, uh, it will be much more fulfilling to make it work under the current circumstances than it would be for me to basically just like give you the cheat to do it easily. And the quote, which I'm going to try to get exactly right here, is all progress takes place outside the comfort zone.
Exactly.
Which is Love a really great quote. It's attributed to, oh crap, do you have the note on that? Who's the original person who said it? It is attributed to, well, I'll find it while you're talking in a minute. But yeah, it's a really just great quote because it really encapsulates this idea that when you are confronted with these things that test your resilience, you grow a lot as a person. And I think that growth might not feel very good at the time that it's happening, and how that growth impacts you later on is not understood until later on. But now I can look back at that and I can say, like, I became a much better leader, a much better software engineer. I had a much better understanding of like how to handle situations that are sort of like well outside of my comfort zone in a corporate setting because of that experience. So yeah, good growth comes out of that. So okay, over to you. Sorry, that was a lot of words.
No, it's fine. In the scheme of good growth and figuring out what it is like in times of resilience and where growth has happened, there was a time in 2006, and actually I wrote a Medium post about this. I'll put this up on the screen while we talk for a little bit here. There was a time in 2006 that Trey and I had come back after buying our first house. We went to Hawaii. We did this all in pretty kind of big debt. Had this moment when I got back to work after being in Hawaii, and there's this, Jake, can I speak with you for a moment? And we decided to let you go. And the reason why is very much around like power dynamics and my boss at the time being threatened by kind of like what I was bringing and what I was doing. And I was being kind of a jerk about it because this was 2006. And so I was 27 years old. So I was kind of being that 27-year-old jerk about it. But out of that whole situation, I'm going to get the numbers correct here. I think we had, yes, $533,000 of debt that we had to clear.
Oh my God, it was such a big number.
Yeah, I can show you the numbers all the way down. So if you take the mortgages, all of the credit cards, the car debt, all of that, it was $533,061. The thing that was really bad on this day was that you'll see this thing that says withdrawal tax penalty at the top of the screen here. What I had decided to do was there was a bonus that was coming from work. We were banking on that bonus to buy the house. So I took money out of a retirement account in order to pay for the house down payment before I would get the bonus and then put the money back in. But that bonus never came because I was fired from the company. And so tremendous. This was probably the scariest time financially for me and Trey. And this
was really terrifying.
This kind of designed list of all of our debts is really what we did probably on the 30th of October, 2006 together. Like we wrote down every single debt that we had and came to the conclusion that our lifestyle was too high. Our reliance on debt was too heavy. And we ended up spending a lot of time through that resilience, coming up with the resolve on how we can live in a much more simplified way, in a lower cost way, and how there wasn't anything. I mean, the things that we were giving up actually weren't things that we were giving up at all. what ended up feeling like sacrifice at first started feeling a little bit more like freedom later, in a way that was like really, really nice. And after 7 years of this event happening, we went from having that amount of debt to having no debt at all. And that, like Trey had talked about, irrevocably shaped us in a way that allows us to now, without taking funding, self-funding our venture into cosmic plumbing, which is so cool. And I love it so much. So I'm at the time, that day was disastrous for me, and I felt a lot of personal shame. Now, looking back upon that 18 years later, crazy, by the way, that was 18 years ago, I am so thankful for that day and what the resolve that gift gave me. It was awesome.
Yeah. There was a meta thing about that too, which was that I think we both also learned how to that you don't you you the joy that you can get out of things does not necessarily equate to how much money you spent on them, for example. Like I learned how to cook during that time. Like that was like really how, like before that I could make like bacon and eggs or whatever. And like I learned how to cook because we had to go get cheap groceries and make large pots of very inexpensive food.
Yeah, it was great.
And yeah, and that was a wonderful, joyous experience. And we learned all kinds of like new things that we love, Korean grocery stores that we love. And they are the best. If you are trying to shop on a budget and you have a local Korean grocery store, definitely check it out. But yeah, just there were so many things that I think it felt like going into it like a kind of death. Like
correct,
that it was just going to be like horrible and shutting down, and now we can't do anything, and we're just going to be like trapped in our houses hugging our knees and crying or whatever. And it was like the complete opposite of that. It was joyous and fun, and we learned a ton of new things and growth.
Yeah, I remember one moment in particular where I was on the bus going to my job, whatever, I can't remember what job that was. I think I was in Seattle, so I was probably working for Frog, and I think the iPad just came out, and I'm very technologically forward, and I would love this thing, and the marketing was beautiful for it. And I just remember the feeling that I had that like I was not allowed to buy the iPad because I did not have the money to do it. I couldn't pay cash for it. And I remember feeling that 5-year-old sense of like being upset and wanting to throw a tantrum on the floor of the bus. You do not want to throw a tantrum on the floor of a bus. Please don't do that, because that's the most disgusting.
Because you will be throwing a tantrum in somebody's shit and vomit.
Exactly. Exactly. And to move past that feeling to like, it's not lost, but rather it is something that feels a little bit more like resilience. I am so thankful that I didn't I could have that experience of like not giving in to my 5-year-old self and rather saying like, no, it's okay. There is rewards to come later. And I'm so glad that we are now the beneficiary of those rewards today.
Yeah. Good job. Past us.
Good job, past us. Who knew that could happen?
Yeah.
Cool. Good check-in, everybody. Mr. Henry, do you want to talk a little bit about like the demo you're going to give today?
Yeah, let's do it. It's going to be a little bit of a short one. I didn't bring up the Figma design for this.
I can do that. I'll bring up the Figma design.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, also, I did get that quote, by the way, which was from Michael John Boback, who's like a digital artist online. That all progress takes place outside the comfort zone.
Very good.
Really good one to whip out if this topic ever comes up with somebody. It just really, really encapsulates it, gets it right down to the nubbin.
Love it.
Anyway, okay, so let's. I'm switching over here to my little demo screen. So we talked a little bit before about what we call the firmament, which is a very Platonic sort of understanding of the kind of like ideal state of components in the system. It's a very world of forms kind of situation. So these are individual components, individual UI components within our system, which then get combined into UIs and into charts and into other things. So here I'm showing one part of the firmament, which is the astrology firmament that contains our glyph library right now. So you can see that we have, planets and or points, because we have parts in here as well, and we're showing them kind of like big and small. And so this is a way that we can show kind of like variations of things, and we can see sort of how they look in isolation. It also makes it kind of nice for development, because even if something doesn't currently exist somewhere else in the system, you can make it exist in the firmament, and then try it out, test it out, make sure that everything is working with it, and get it to where you want it to be.
Do you want to talk a little bit about what the firmament is? I think we may have talked about this before. If we did, it's up there. But what is the firmament?
Well, I think I just described it. It's a component library, in technical terms, and it's a place where we have isolated components and variations of those components, so that we can see them by themselves, see them in isolation, and work on them in isolation. Is that how do you like
I
that
love
description?
it. It's perfect.
Okay. Yeah. So component libraries are often a thing in applications, particularly more modern applications. It's just kind of nice thing to do. So anyway, but I didn't want to show you that necessarily. That was just a little bit of preamble. One of the things that I wanted to show you is this fancy new button.
Ooh.
It's even called fancy button. And so this is based on Jake's design, which he'll show in a second. And this will be part of, so there's a couple of pieces of work here. I'll also show a label here in a second, which are around those native cards, which I showed you before. They're just those cards that like have details about like famous people in the system. This will all make more sense over time. But one of the elements of those cards is this ability to say like, oh, here's somebody's birth information. I want to cast that chart. And then, so this would be that call to action to cast the chart. And this works really great. There is a problem here with we want to smoothly animate the states between like the unhighlighted and the highlighted version of the button. And so that's something that is still work that needs to be done, because it's relatively complicated. I won't get into the whole like theming and tailwind and all of the details of this, because it's quite in the weeds. But I'll quickly also show this, which is what we call the point label. And this is also a good kind of example of the sort of stuff that we do with the firmament. So this is a very straightforward looking thing, but there's actually quite a bit going on under the covers here to arrive at this label, which represents a position of a planet. So you could say, or a position of a point. So you could imagine that on those native detail cards, we might show the quote unquote big three: the sun, the moon, and the rising. And so we can show this by selecting like this is obviously very rudimentary, but it allows you to sort of switch out these glyphs and to change the values, which will allow you to do things like what happens when they're really big, what happens when they're really small, what happens when it's like weird situations, like there's nothing there, things like this. And so in this way, we can kind of like develop these components so that they are a little bit work better and are more resilient. And then this component, as Jake will show in a second, this component plus this fancy button are part of what will get built into these cards as like little individual things.
Yep.
Before we progress, there is one other thing that I did this cycle, which isn't exactly cosmic, but I did want to mention it because any of the viewer might be interested in software engineering and development, and there is a development IDE, or an integrated development environment, called Neovim, which is a type of Vim. Details don't matter, but there's an open source project that makes it very easy and nice to set up. And I just want to show this because I put up recently a pull request for this project. And this is Neovim running with a bunch of extra stuff to make it like very nice and easy to use. And it's very, very nice. It's very full featured. So here we're looking at, these are some of the like wrapper things that we have for the firmament. So we're actually just looking at code here, but look at how nice it looks. Like, even if you're not a software engineer and you're just like looking at this, it just looks really beautiful. It's really nice. It works really well. It's got integrated Git, support, and anyway, it's really cool. We'll probably drop a link to this as well. And yeah, just wanted to say that I did some work on this and contributed to this open source project also in this cycle. So.
Well, you're not the only one that did a contribution as well. So I also went out. I've been reading a book. I'm gonna get the title of the book wrong. It is Web Scraping in Python. It's written by a woman named Ryan Mitchell, I believe. And I found an error in Ryan's book. And when I found that error, I also decided to do a pull request on their repository for this. And I just said, like, hey, the Wikipedia, oops, there we go. The Wikipedia is formatted in a different way. You might want to do this, this very simple change. And like literally it is one line change from this to this. Just to correct this, pull request has not been accepted yet, but Joseph Wang did write back in, it looks like Chinese, to say, I got your email, thanks. So that's good.
Oh, nice.
very, very sweet that they wrote that. So look at us. We're doing our pull requests. Both me and Trey. Do you want me to show
contributing to open source?
Yeah, exactly. Very good. Very good for us. Did you want me to show the actual button? Is this what you wanted me to show?
No, show the card. Show the native, like the fully composed card that's like in the bottom left corner. Oh yeah, that. Or on the left there. Oh, you're looking at the oh yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Upper left.
Yeah, one. That one. Yeah, exactly. So here you can see obviously you can see the cast chart button down there at the bottom, which you just saw in the firmament, and then also these labels, which are here, showing, exactly what I was demoing in the firmament just a moment ago.
Yeah, we showed that last week. You're more than welcome to go back to that episode. It's right over there. Where is that episode? Very good. You pointed right to it. Love it.
It's only taken 20 episodes.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's about that time. I love it. Well, cool. Not a lot of demos today. Like I said, I'm not going to show you Python web scraping code because that would be incredibly boring. But just know that, like, I have been spending a lot of time, as you saw, working through how to do web scraping in Python. And big thanks to Ryan Mitchell for writing their book. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. And I'm also not going to show a bunch of Tailwind, CSS, and theming stuff because it is far too in the weeds. But that is where I've been all week for the most part.
I love it. Is there anything that you want to recommend the viewer to do or to look at while we wish them a fond farewell?
Clean between your teeth. Like, I know everybody brushes, but get one of those little like pick things. Use some floss. You can do, it doesn't have to just be at night. You could do it like after you eat lunch, for example.
Yeah.
Floss your teeth.
Thanks for watching. After you eat lunch today, dinner, breakfast, midnight snack, go floss your teeth. Go get a little pick in there.
Yeah.
Get in the crevices. Your gum line will thank you for it. We hope you all have a beautiful Saturday or whatever day you watch this episode, and we hope that you will come back and watch us again soon. Be well, everyone. Bye.